Hi guys, welcome back to Motherhood Interrupted. I'm your host, Kimberly. Today I have on Shawn Keeler, a tech guy turned stay-at-home dad. My friend, Hillary Thornton, introduced me to Shawn as we previously discussed our experience going from hard-charging corporate track women to stay-at-home mom. You can check out that discussion on episode number 76, as I do reference that discussion several times throughout my time here with Shawn. Shawn is a father to 3 boys, a 10-month-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old. His wife, Lauren, is a teacher at a university and is flourishing in her career, one she has worked long and hard for. Shawn describes how he and Lauren came to the decision for him to take care of the home and the kids while enabling Lauren to continue crushing it at work. We discuss everything from losing and gaining self-confidence as a stay-at-home parent to keeping it sexy, especially as the dad, finding room for creativity again, to navigating the division of labor with your spouse. So many of these issues are so raw, so real, and so honest. And whether you're a stay-at-home parent or a working parent, this conversation will definitely resonate. I really appreciate Shawn coming on and sharing his insights, and it really made me see just how lucky his kids are to have a dad that passionately pours into his kids, playing and nurturing them every single day. Now, if you're enjoying this episode, please share it with friends, rate it, and follow us. And that's the social currency we need to keep the show going strong, guys, so we appreciate it. With that, welcome Shawn Keeler to Motherhood Interrupted. Shawn, I am super interested in learning all about what life is like as a stay-at-home dad. I think it's super interesting to investigate and explore just kind of this, what I'll call like a diversion or a breach of like gender norms. And obviously, your wife is working. She's incredibly successful, brilliant. You're clearly brilliant. Can you kind of walk us through how, like, what were you doing before and how did it come to be that you ended up in this role as a stay-at-home dad?
Yeah, I was working full time. My wife going through grad school. My sort of role was just to have a job and kind of support that, so that she could go through and see that through to the end. So once she graduated, got a couple doctoral placements and stuff, and so I've just kind of I've always been involved in sales and marketing. That's my main background. Tech companies, startups, local, sort of boutique agencies, but always in the sort of sales and marketing vein. And I've had like probably 4 or 5 different jobs in the course of her going through and finishing all of that. Just, sort of small companies, big companies. I did quite a bit of consulting as well. And really the decision to stay at home kind of came down when COVID hit. It was, we were both working a ton. We hadn't had our baby yet. We had just the 2 older boys. They were in school. Had a lot of time, and I was put at home basically. And then a few months later, as a consultant, I was just let go entirely. And so, Lauren had a very stable job with the university, but it was unsure whether or not she was going to be teaching on campus or remote. There's quite a bit of sort of scrambling to do. And so the support was really needed at home. She was at home. There's just too much going on with like, the older kids, their laundry. It's like everything is just, if nobody does it, as well as anyone, it just kind of backs up. And so I was getting burned out, and I was really kind of keen on the idea of slowing down a little bit and, getting stuff around the house done, being able to spend more time with the family and just kind of doing things for the family. The idea of doing stuff for the family, I really adored that. I think in a way that I didn't see before. Maybe it was just that there wasn't really an opportunity. COVID kind of forced a lot of people's hands, I think. And so we just never went back. We're kind of settled in now, and we've had a lot of discussions about what it would look like to work again. I think there's the potential to maybe start something up that's small that I could grow over time. But, I think for now, it's just been so nice and refreshing to have someone managing the house. I mean, there's so much that goes on. And with the new baby now, it's in that time since COVID, we've had, he's 10 months old now. So we've got a new baby, and all the more reason to have all the hands on deck at home. And
Oh yeah.
yeah. So
what is your new baby's name?
Wesley.
Oh, what is Wesley's birthday?
January 13th.
Oh,
of
okay.
this
So
year.
we have baby London February 27th. So you and
Okay.
I are living a lot of our lives in parallel right now. Quitting
Yeah.
the job, working remotely as a consultant, then quitting the job, then leaning into the home. A lot of your journey is similar to mine. And it's so great to have a conversation with somebody that really has walked that walk or is walking it kind of by my side. I don't know if you heard Hillary. So Hillary came on and she said it so perfectly. I always think of it when you have working parent and a stay-at-home parent. I think of it in terms of like balance or, traditional roles. I think of, when I think, okay, one working parent, one stay at home. But the way she said it was so awesome. She said, well, not everybody can be on the revenue generating side of the house. Somebody needs to be ops. I chuckled so hard because I'm like, thank you for putting it in terms of business because that totally resonates. Like you nailed it. That was exactly
Totally.
the right way of putting it, right?
Yeah, not everybody in an enterprise is generating revenue on a daily basis. There's, Nancy in accounting is just, making sure that the books flow forward. I mean, and she gets paid, accordingly. Like you know, that's
Yep.
great. I struggled at first, when I first started staying home with the kids and we'd get together with friends and, like all of the, we'd get together and all the dads and, hey man, I'm at this law firm and hey, what do you do? And what do you do? And my initial response was always, early on, I was like, well, I'm in sales and marketing or, I've been consulting for the past little bit. I rarely bring up my professional past, at this point when I talk with people. I'm just fully into a stay-at-home dad. And I've thought a lot about like why I was so apprehensive to like own that initially. And I think it is because of the sort of defined gender roles that we have in society. I think also it's also kind of reinforced in media, in consumerism, and in advertising. I think there's this question whether or not dads can actually be stay at home, like can be the stay at home parent. Like, can they actually do all the things? You see these commercials with dads not being able to change a diaper or fumbling around the kitchen with the, pans on fire and smoke's bellowing out of the oven. He's got a dish rag over his shoulder and he's on the phone with the mom and he's got a baby in his arm. And it's just like a complete shit show, like, but that's not how it is, like it's just, it's, if you're in the thick of it, you've learned just like in any other case, no one after 3 years of driving a car is all of a sudden one day like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, so to kind of buck that and go, against that, I think I've had moms in the past that, are like, oh, hey, bless your heart, I'll bet you get a lot of help from mom, and you're like, not really. I mean, she's pretty busy, like she works full time. So it goes both ways, but it was hard initially because of that to get on board fully.
So glad you brought that up because that actually was one of my questions around how society perceives you or how you kind of handle and manage that. Because that's I mean, look, again, Hillary and I were talking about that in general, society does not really reward or respect or highly regard a stay-at-home mom, let alone a stay-at-home dad. So it's something that me as a woman, like I feel that I can imagine the weight that puts on you in some ways. But I do think as you're talking, it's interesting to me because it goes back to what we were just saying about our kids. And what I'm realizing is like, maybe it's not so much about the gender per se, it seems like it's more like who you are as an individual. So for example, you seem like you're equipped to handle all the things that are required of being a stay-at-home parent, which you and I both know it is no joke. Like you just described, there's like 10 different things you have to juggle. There's just a lot. You could be stressed out constantly. But like, I think about my husband and I genuinely feel like between the two of us, like I have a stronger intuition. Like I know that I naturally just can read our kids better just because I know his personality. And so I think that it's really interesting because I do think maybe it's like as a society, we're assuming that it's always the women that are more capable. But look, maybe two parents are both equally capable, or maybe the
Yeah.
husband is more capable. It just depends on the person. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, based on what you know, based on what society has sort of told you, who is better equipped to take all the kids out on a camping trip on their own? Is it mom or is it dad?
Oh, dad, 100%.
Right. So if we're willing to accept that and we know that outright, like, why we're talking about camping, we're literally talking about going out in the middle of the woods, making a makeshift house, providing all of the nourishment, food, supplies, all of the entertainment. And if dads are the best at that kind of stuff, why the hell wouldn't a dad be great at home where you have this all of the amenities, all of these comforts, all of these things, right? Like, so I think there's these contradictions in society that we see sometimes where it's like a dad could never be a stay-at-home, a stay-at-home parent. And it's like, well, but I would totally trust dad to take all three kids out with hatchets in the middle of the woods, and
No, you're so right.
and climb on ropes and climb up trees and boulder on rocks and find stuff and dig around and like if that's if we're willing to accept that that's dad can handle it, dad can handle that, he can handle anything, right? And so there are these, I think, things where, like, at least for me, I try as a stay-at-home dad, and that was my challenge to myself, was like, I'm not just going to sit around here and do this stuff. I've got the freedom to do this, and my kids, when they have the freedom to do this, then we're getting out. Like, we go rock hounding on the weekends, we go out to the mountains, and we go and dig out crystals. Like, we go and camp when we can. I mean, it's soccer season right now, so they're a little busier, but I mean, we've probably camped a dozen times in the last year and a half. So there's like and even just overnight, maybe just like leave at 3 p.m, go hit a spot an hour away, set up, let them run around and go psycho, wake up and make some oatmeal and start a fire, because like those are the things they really want to do, right? And it's not about like being out there for an extended time. It's just changing it up, having fun, the anticipation of driving out there, like finding this spot. I let them pick out a spot where we should go. And so like, there's just, for me, I've really taken it on. Like, what can I be doing? We cut rocks open at the house. I got a tile saw so we can cut open rocks, like there's just stuff we do. They've got toolboxes. We build stuff together. There's like,
Wow.
I involve them in all these things because I have the time, because, we can. I've got a nanny that helps out too a few days a week. And that's really nice with the baby. Again, it's like, without that, I just wouldn't have time to go shopping and do laundry and, all of that other stuff that is required. But yeah, I mean, for me, I treat it a lot like, if I'm going to be at home with them, how can we not just survive, but how can we really, thrive? What are things that we can be doing? What are things I can set up for them? I'll go and cut out while they're at school, like little templates of wooden swords or something, and then let them, paint them and color them on the weekend with me, and then we'll finish them off and stuff. Like, there's just stuff that we can do that I can help enrich their life. But I think this gets back to those family ties, right? And when it comes time for those pulls, those other social pulls from their friends when they're 12 and 13, and they're like, hey, let's go do this, think that might be not such a smart idea, or let's go do this, like, hopefully they'll have the confidence and the judgment supported by the life that we've given them and the values we've instilled in them, and just the support that they feel, even if they're far away from us. I like to consider that there's like this, it's like a bubble that when you're close, it's squished, but the further away they get, it's still there in between you, right? There's still this soft space that is kind of there. And so I'd like to think that all of these things we're doing now, and this relationship and this dependent, this trust that I'm building with them, that dad's always going to be there, and not just always be there, but always be there in a really great way, will help to keep that tie strong to home.
I love that.
Family.
That is, it really does show it showcases what an advantage it is for those boys to have their dad, nurturing them every day and, doing all the things that boys like to do, or people like to do, kids like to do, and like really just, yeah, I mean, that quality time is priceless. And I do think that that is really a game changer for kids in general. And to get it from your dad, I mean, that's like a huge gift. I feel like you always have your attachment to your mom because mom is mom, but to also get your dad on top of that is just, I mean, that's transformative. So I want to ask you something. When you're out, let's just say at the park, And when you're like with you and your baby, or you and some of your kids, and then there's like a mom there with her kids, like as a woman, if there are two women there, we'd start chatting probably. As a dad, how are you received by women, and what can we learn to do better if there's something missing there?
That's a really nice question, and I appreciate that consideration and thinking about that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a super talkative person, and I really don't. I have no qualms about just like, hey, what's up? If the kids are playing together, I'll just say how old. I'll start a dialogue no matter what. Like, hey, how old's your baby? Or do you guys come here a lot? Or this is Wesley. He likes this or that. I'm Shawn. Nice to meet you. We live in the area. Just like I'm cognizant of being a male, and like it's a park. You can say it's a park. It's a public place. It's there for everybody. But most of the time that I'm there with the kids, it's like mostly moms, 99% moms. And if there's a dad there, the mom's usually always also there, right? And so it's rarely just a dad and the kids. And so I'm cognizant of that, and like you don't want to be a creepy guy that's just like, hey, what's up? But there's a level of like disarming and saying, hey, this is my baby. I'm his dad. We live in the area. Like all of these things out front should let you know that I'm just here at the park with my baby. I think it's I don't get a bad read per se from moms typically when I'm out at like the park and stuff. If anything, I think it's more like, oh, hey, that's really great to see. Like I think there's usually like a sense of appreciation for like, oh, that must be nice, or something like that. It's hard to know what everyone's situation is, and if they're willingly a stay-at-home mom, or we're kind of urged to go. Like it's you never know. Most of the times it's nice. The thing I really got pushback from was, candidly, at first, my mother-in-law and my own mom. Right, those are the main women in my life that I think I felt a little bit more like resistance or judgment, from, about what are you going to do after this? If how long is it going to be? If it's too long, will you have any opportunities? If you don't have any opportunities, what does that look like? Just like, and I think those are all fair questions to ask for sure, but wondering if if it was the right move versus like Lauren per se, like they're just, if they would have never asked those questions for her, then I don't understand why they would be asked for me. It just doesn't make any sense. And getting back to the sort of ops side of this, like the revenue generating and the ops side of this, we just talked a lot about all of the things I do and I think about. And you can imagine every business out there has these sort of strategic conversations and these ideations about, how can I do my job best? How can I make this a really great environment and blow the expectations out of the water? There's so much to that, as so much brain power and thought that goes into like just every single day. I think arguably more than someone who has a pretty standardized job and just knows what they're doing. But yeah, I think getting back to the feedback, or how it's received, I think it's generally pretty good. There's maybe like a handful of times that it's like, it felt like, to me, I got a sense of like, well, why aren't you going out and making money? Like, like just a little bit of an air of like judgment, or, like I'm supposed to be, like I'm taking a break or something, or like I'm kind of going the easy route out, or whatever. Mind you, like my wife will never leave her. She loves doing what she does. And so that's the whole reason, that we made this decision, was like, I've had 4 or 5 jobs, since graduating at various ad agencies and tech startups and this and that. And she's been on one track for one job for like 9 years now. And it doesn't make sense for her to pull out of that completely. And in academia, if she does take, a year off, that's it. I think, you talked a lot about worrying and in losing your professional self, slowly, which I think happens. You lose that like crust, like that you have. But even if it's buried, like a past life, you have those skills. That's all there. I mean, I have no reason to believe that I couldn't go and sell whatever it was in a heartbeat. And if in 2 years, Salesforce looks completely different, like, I have no reason to believe I couldn't get in there and learn it in a week. Like, there's always going to be opportunity, and you'll always have that experience, that, those skills, those contacts. And I think losing that straight 100% focus on business and having that sort of balanced approach could potentially, make a more vicious, sort of business in the future.
You're saying exactly what I'm saying, and you're using different words, which is, look, after how many years of experience, education, everything you've done, the way I see it is like work's always going to be there. There will always be a job for sure, especially sales. Like someone always needs a salesperson, period. The end. Like, it's not even, to me, I don't worry about getting another job, because I'm like, I already know, like I have all these skills. No one's taking it in education. No one's taking that from me.
You're not going to lose your edge either. I mean, if you were if you were a battle axe in business, then that's who you are. It's, being able to recognize that and not be a battle axe with your children is really nice. But like, that doesn't mean that if you got back into a situation where you have to negotiate on behalf of someone or something, and your pay is dependent on it or whatever, right? That you're not going to be able to remember what it's like to put someone's argument back on them, whatever. Like, do what you've got to do, right? I mean, it's always going to be there. And I think it's, maybe like if you were starting a new job, you think about like how timid it is to go in on the first day of a new job, and just where you don't know anyone, it's just like, and you've got to just roll into it and do it. I think that there's a certain, you're right, that there's a certain element of, because you don't really need it. You don't really need to have all that confidence, with your kids. You're just keeping things rolling. You're not, I guess I handle all of my wife she really doesn't like talking to people on the phone. And so like anything going wrong with the house, like I've been dealing with the solar people for the last few weeks, and I blew up their social media. I went down to their headquarters. Like there's opportunities for me to still like exert my dominance, I guess. But I think that as that confidence maybe shifts a little bit or goes into different areas, that just means that maybe you're not the right person anymore to do what you used to do, right? And so like for me, if I think about like, there's no way you will catch me back at a high growth tech startup, like not in management, not anywhere. Like I just won't go in that scene. That's just, it's too much happening there that I just don't want to be a part of. And I'm aging for that scene. Like that is like a mid 20s to like, mid 30s kind of latest. You've got some folks in their 40s up in management, but it's not that common. And so I get that. I'd be fully honest. If I were going to do, something now that was revenue generating, I would probably start like a classic car restoration company, because that's something where I could have that confidence in knowing what I'm doing, knowing what I'm putting out, knowing that, if I'm selling a restored car, that it's been done well, and that I could confidently, back that. But that's not something where I would have all the stress, the high stress. Like it's just, I would get involved in something that I really enjoy, that I have a passion for, that I already have that inherent, sort of innate confidence, already there, that I could work with. I wouldn't feel comfortable or confident going into like, your old situation or my old situation, maybe an ad agency, right? Starting out a little ad agency or something. I would feel great about that. And you could take it slow and build it up. And so I think it just means that if, I don't know if the confidence goes away, it maybe shifts, to different areas, but I can't tell you what you're feeling for sure. I'm just suggesting that, for me, it's felt a little bit more like a shift than like vanishing altogether. And I've thought about that. Like, could I go back and do the kind of work I did before, even consulting with some of the companies I consulted with, where you're like, I don't really like this guy. He seems kind of shady, but he's got money, and I need to get paid for this month. And so like, it'd be great to like there's a compromises you make knowingly. And I think now now having done both things, the idea of going back to work looks a lot different to me than it might have looked before. Than it looked before when I've been looking for a job, right? Or when I was
Right.
changing jobs. Like it just looks a lot different.
I totally get that. I think that it's interesting because you're also highlighting something else that's very interesting to me, which is in stepping away from the hustle bustle of, you know, the normal workforce that we've always been a part of and always been clamoring to join. I think in taking that pause and the break from that workforce, it does give you a lot more time to be introspective and thoughtful and intentional with if you were to relaunch into some kind of career capacity, you know, maybe in the next chapter. If you were to kick that around, it does make you think of things, you know, I think you start to see opportunities differently. You start to identify things that would be more of passion projects for you, things that you'd be, you know, more eager and excited to do and do with passion. It's an interesting experience to get to stop the rat race and get to stop and be thoughtful and
Mm-hmm.
intentional and be present. I guess to that point, you know, I am starting to feel a little bit like anxious, like I want to go back to work, like I want to work. And I've been trying to challenge, like, why do I feel that way? And, you know, is part of it my ego because I'm good at making money? Like what, you know, and so it's been this kind of ongoing internal struggle for me. And I don't think that there's a right or a wrong. And I think for everyone it's different. It really comes down to yourself and your expectations of yourself or, you know, just what you want, frankly. I guess as you think
Mm-hmm.
about it for you, do you perceive this in your mind as like a chapter where it makes sense for you to stay home? You want to be present with your boys. Obviously, you're amazing at it. In your mind, you feel like, okay, well, maybe I'll go and relaunch into some kind of passion project at some point, or like, we'll see. Do you have that internal dialogue? Because I definitely do. And I think it's to a fault. But then I know my friends that are stay at home moms and they're like, oh, no, I'm fully content. Like, I'm not going, like, they don't have that itch inside of them. Like, where do you sit with that?
Yeah, no, so yes, I have that dialogue all the time. And I've done lots of passion projects. I was building boom boxes with some friends of mine out of Oakland, and we were laser cutting all of the parts, and the whole design of the boom box could be entirely cut out, you know, from wood sheets, and we're shipping them as kits. And like, yeah, I've done a lot of weird things, and I've picked up a lot of hobbies that I had no idea that I would find. And I'm always I have my mind is always commercializing everything. Like this, I probably every day I have like 3 to 5 businesses that just like pop in my head, and I'm like, why isn't someone doing this? Like I literally just said there should be a brand new funding, there should be a brand new like funding model for selling cars instead of auctions. This should just everyone should be a sweepstakes, and you're literally just if I want to sell a car, $70,000 is what I need to get. I'm going to put that as my reserve. And as soon as 70,000 people buy a $1 ticket, or enough people buy $70,000 worth of tickets, the thing goes. And there's a countdown, and you get 24 hours left to brush and buy it, and then randomly select a winner. And I'm like, this serves the, you know, a random person out there gets to get a car for like maybe $5 because that's how many tickets they bought. I still get the full asking price of my sale, like right where I'm trying to find out like why this is a bad situation, you know, like, but then you
That's
get
such a
into
good idea.
taxes. What if, yeah, but like, what if someone, you know, who can't afford it inherits a $70,000 car all of a sudden, you know, because they bought $2 worth of tickets, and they've got to have this thing, you know, they were shipping it to them in Rhode Island or whatever. Now they can't afford it, and they can't afford, you know, so like what happens there? Who's, you know, who's responsible for it? You know, like there's a lot of, but in my mind, I'm like, this is a great idea. This could be for like luxury bags and watches and like everyone. Why not just like the ability to create a sweepstakes for an individual to create a sweepstakes around any product that they want to sell privately? That's it.
Absolutely. That is such an
But
interesting thing that you just said. And I know you still have to answer my first question, but I just have to
we
make a point
we can talk. Yeah, I know.
forever.
I
Well,
know.
the thing about that, I this morning came up with a business also. And it had to do with pumping, like pimp out your pumping. Cause I was thinking if men pumped, they'd be pimping out these pumping rooms, like, you know, at because they're like little closets at work. And like, if it were men, they'd have video games and luxury couches and a
Yeah.
car and anyway, whatever. So I guess I'm only sharing that because what I'm really getting out of this discussion right now is something very, very poignant, which is it really goes to show that our creativity is severely stunted when we're in the middle of the rat race constantly. If you look at a child, they're constantly creating ideas. Your kids probably imagine things, they create things with you. Why is that? And I was thinking of it last night. My son was coming up with something. I'm thinking, what a beautiful time in his life where he's not worrying about how he's going to make rent and how, all these things that you end up worrying about as an adult. He's in this precious place where he can just create.
Yes.
And you're experiencing that. And so am I, because we're not caught up. And I just think that's really interesting to point out that we get to actually be creative.
Yeah. So to answer your first question, of course, yes, I think about stuff all the time. I think about businesses all the time. And no, I'm not done. Like, I've got a lot of life left, and I think there's a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot of money to be made out there. Like, I still want to make money. Like, I think it's in a different way. It looks different. I mean, there's no reason I can't be selling $100,000, restored classic cars. There's a huge market for that. There's plenty of folks that do that. I have all the same skills that they have. I can acquire knowledge that I don't have that they have. And over time, I think I could be doing the same thing. And so, I don't have, I think, the ambition to go and like, I don't want to build a $10 million business, like, I'm not trying to do that. I think if the right idea pops in my head and it seems like, well, this is interesting, like I went through the run actually, like last year, I met three or four times with a developer here in town, buddy of mine, to talk about an idea that we were calling homework. And it was just basically Airbnb, but for remote workers. So like, you pull up your thing and you see all the people's homes in your area that are available. And it's like, well, this person's got a beautiful balcony I could work off of. And there's coffee and tea and it's $20 an hour. So I'll do 2 hours at this person's house and it's 2 blocks away and I can bring my dog, like, it's like literally just allowing that marketplace to connect people who don't want someone staying in their house unattended, but they want to be there and just host, remote designers and developers and people. There's a guy, I'm sitting on my patio. In theory, there could be 3 people at the kitchen table and 2 people in the, on the sofa.
That's
in there,
brilliant.
and some music maybe playing inside. And
that's brilliant.
Like, so it, I went through building this whole thing out. We ultimately came to the idea that, we're going to have to find a couple $100,000 to really put into development and build, the architecture for this. There are some apps that you can, marketplaces where you can buy the structure or, the framework for a marketplace like this, but it'd have to be adapted quite a bit and, remodeled quite a bit. So we had to ask the question, like, is this something we want to do? He has a full-time job, this is just on the side. He was like, probably take me a few months. And, at that point I was like, am I ready to go and hit hyperdrive and try to raise a couple $100,000 to put this maybe idea into motion? And it doesn't stop after that. It goes ideally for years and years and years. But like, even if it, peters out, it's at least going to go for a year, 2 year and a half. And before you realize that it's just not going right. So there's, do I want to take on that risk?
Yep.
Yeah, but it happens all the time. There's lots of stuff, little things I've thought about. I mean, I have an Instagram handle waiting for me to start up for just selling weird vintage, stuff. I'm always buying weird, goofy stuff at Goodwill and estate sales. And I've got, a fantastic collection of just cool, fun, old stuff. And I've got an Instagram handle waiting, just like, all I got to do is start taking pictures and start uploading things and find the right hashtags to post things under, find the right people to follow and start building it up. But, I haven't done it yet because there's other things that, have been keeping me there. But I've got projects started kind of all across the board. And
it's because
I think it's important to do that.
Prioritizing your time is the point. Because at the end of the day, you're going back to this notion of, but is it more important than what I'm doing now? Which you and I both know, especially having a baby. I mean, at the end of the day, you would rather experience having this baby under your care and being present with the baby. And you don't want to miss that chance. Same way I feel.
Well, the job you said before, the job's always going to be there. Like the 7-year-old version of my middle child will not always be there, and that's what's there right now. And so, if I want to catch that ride, I need to be there on that ride right now. And that's the decision. And I grew up with two working parents. Every day after school, when I got a little older, on a bus over to the aftercare center. They'd pick me up at 5:30, and we'd go home. We'd rush to get dinner on the table. I'd do some of my homework, and it was off to bed. And it's just like I pick my kids up in our Volkswagen bus at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day, and sometimes we get ice cream on the way home. And they've got soccer practice that we take them to, and piano practice, and tennis today. And so there's just like I'm there with them, and I want that because I want them to know that I was there, and they'll remember it, and they'll know. And that doesn't mean if 4 years from now I end up having to only spend 30 or 40 hours a week doing something that I've started up, or something that I really believe in, because at that time it might be more worth it. I will have had all those moments, right? Like I don't know, but maybe when he's 13, I'll feel differently, and I'll be like, I want to be there still. He's still sucking his thumb. Oh my God, I love this kid, right? So who knows? I think the fact is, I think if I remain open, and if I remain, optimistic, and it's like there will be opportunities.
For sure. It's an abundance mindset. It's so interesting because I had that every day I think of it too, where I'm like, the fact that with this baby, the first two babies, particularly my second one, I literally had the baby and I was on the road across the country 5 days a week for over a year. Like I was not there. And I was happy with that decision at that time. That's what I needed. But now I'm like, wow, I missed a lot of her first. And now I'm just eating up the experience with baby London, and I'm relaxed with her, and I'm present. And because I came from a situation prior that I wasn't able to do that, now it's like makes it that much more yummy, because I really get it. Like this is so special.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Lauren and I have said about our baby now, Wesley, because we were both working and working so much with the other two kids, and having nannies in the house. The nannies would show up at 7:30. We'd be gone, like just showing back up at 5, and it was a lot. We've said about Wesley that we're both able to adore him in a way that we weren't really able to adore the other boys. Like, and it's not that we didn't want to adore them in this kind of way. I'm sure we would have wanted to, and we would have loved it, but we just weren't able to. We weren't at it wasn't available because we had to work, and we had to keep, that moving. And that was just the setup that we had. But with Wesley, I think in particular, her being able to work so much from home. And so we were pretty strategic with our timing as well. She got pregnant, and then we had him in January, which meant that she had that whole first semester on maternity leave. And then we rolled right into summer, which she has off anyways. And so she basically got, the first 9 months just home with him, which has been really great. And me too, being able to be there. We're able to, like, it's like we were struggling to put it into words, but really what we came up was that we're able to adore him in a way that we just weren't able to adore the other two. It's like extra kisses, extra sniffs, like just spending a little extra time running your fingers through his little hair, and like asking a couple extra questions as you're walking around the house. Just it's like a lingering, just like lingers. Every little exchange lingers a little bit longer than it did with the other ones, and it feels really sweet.
100%.
The big boys don't remember this about their childhood, and so I think that we're getting the benefit of them feeling like this was how it was for them also. And
Totally.
so we're getting all this extra credit because our 9-year-old's like, man, like, you guys really love your boys, don't you? And we're just like, yes, we do.
I say to my kids, wait, Charlotte, I don't know what your first word was. I wasn't there. Let me call your real mother, Becky. And then I call our nanny, our old nanny. I'm like, Becky, was Charlotte's first word bunny? And she's like, no, it was poop. I'm like, oh, sweetie, mommy wasn't there. She said the wrong word. It wasn't. Stop telling everyone bunny. It was poop, dear.
That's awesome. I think Howie's was like alligator. The kid is very verbose. He was very judgy for a while. It took him forever to start talking, but then he was just like he had this alligator little toy, and I would always be like, "Yeah, Mr. Alligator, Mr. Alligator." And one day he just kind of looked at us and was like, "Alligator."
Wow, that's 4 syllables, dude. That's like no joke. My last question is, so how does your wife, how do you feel like she supports you in not feeling like emasculated or makes, and by the way, I actually feel like Hillary and I talked about this. Come to think of it, I think this is not just a dad thing, a stay-at-home dad thing, but a stay-at-home mom thing too, is how does your spouse make you feel valued, but particularly for a
Hmm.
stay-at-home dad, not to feel emasculated and to feel valued. What does she do or say, or how does that work between the two of you where you both feel secure and valued and like equal participants in your family and overall home life?
I think that's a really good question. I will say that being home with the kids, I think have really fast tracked a lot of conversation and discussion with our relationship as a whole. And so I think, her being home, me being home has just forced a lot of time. And we've had some really rough moments in our relationship where, candidly, you're like, is this really going to work out? Right. Because at times it's felt just so tough. Specifically, we've gone through moments where I have felt a ton of resentment that like I'm not being appreciated or recognized for everything that goes on around here, and also wanting her to do more when she gets home, and having to like, over time put myself in check. And again, like this has spurred a lot of discussions, just really hard, open, honest and candid discussions about what our expectations need to be, what they are, understanding that even if it doesn't feel properly aligned, sometimes it might be what the other person needs, right? Even if it's not as fair. And so there's been a lot of, like, I think over the years, learning and development around how I can how I can feel valued, appreciated, recognized. I worried a little bit about her seeing me differently also, right? Like from a woman to a man. And and will that, I know that she thinks it's really nice that I'm home with the kids and it's really endearing, but I also want her to think I'm sexy, and I also want her to think I'm, you know, available, and her, man. And so there there I think there've been a lot of there've just been a lot of ways that I think both of us have been able to come together. So what she does, she's very good about verbally saying, "Wow, the house looks great. Oh, thank you for doing that." She's really good about that. She wasn't always, and she's learned to recognize that. I am like touch is my love language. I'm just like a very affectionate and sort of physical person. That's how I feel loved. And in moments where Lauren sometimes is super busy with work, it's really easy for her to get just zoned in there in her head, and at times can feel like she's not even there, or to me it can feel like she doesn't even recognize that I'm there. And so we have we're at the point now where I can flat out just be like, "Hey, can you put the phone down for the rest of this evening so that we can just kind of connect?"
Right.
And if she has something, she'll say, "I need 10 more minutes to finish this up, and then I can do that." Yeah.
I
But
love
I
that.
gotta remember too that she's when she comes home from work, or is done, even though she's been home all day, when she's done and walks out of her office, it doesn't she's not always ready to jump into parenting. And if you consider that at that moment, it's 5 o'clock, she just came out of her office, like technically my job's done, her job's done, now we're co-parenting. Like now I've got to still give 50%, like I can't expect that she's going to take on everything and just go. I still have to be there. And so she's really good about supporting. There's tons of times she just does the laundry, she just gets it done. There's tons of times she'll just clean up, and I can flat out say like, I'm going to go to bed, I'm super tired. I still dream feed the baby every night at 10. And so there's times after dinner where I'm like, you can put the big kids to bed, I'm going to go get a couple hours of sleep. And set an alarm so I can feed the baby later. And she's great about that. It hasn't always been that way for both of us, being able to accept and just give that, even if it isn't what you want. It's what's good. It's what's good for the family. It's what this person is asking for. Yeah. So I think that the ways that she's been supportive are recognition, acceptance, knowing that it's hard. There are moments still where like I'll see her kind of get frustrated and flustered with the kids, if she's taking the boys to school in the morning or something, and I'm just kind of sitting back with the baby and she's running around like, get your backpack, take your pill, did you eat your breakfast, like, where's your shoes, oh my god, and I'll sit there and sometimes, like, candidly, I'll just be like in my head to myself, it's good that she's having this. It's good that she's having this moment so that she can see how challenging this is. And I'm not going to step in. I'm not going to try to help. Like, I'm just going to, it's good that she's having this moment too, so that she can appreciate when, on those days when I've got all three kids and I'm taking them to school, which is most days, that it's hard and
Very hard. Very hard.
I'm not always,
especially when you have the baby.
Oh yeah.
That's the part that makes it super
baby,
hard.
But you get him in the car seat and then he poops, yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Or the baby doesn't understand patience when you're trying to get so-and-so's shoes on or whatever. And then, the baby's screaming too. And I mean, it's especially joyous and poetic when all three of them get to yell at you at once. That's super fun. The baby needs what it needs, he or she needs now, and that's that. So I love that. I love, thank you, first of all, for even being honest. I think that's really hard to say, look, it's hard for us to figure out our stride. And there's been, challenges and stuff, because everything you just said completely makes sense and resonates, because my husband and I have had those, continuous, like you say, it's continuous. At the end of the day, like, it's partnership, and it does require, exactly as you said, open, honest communication. And to me, it seems like you two have the respect and the open, found the tools and come to terms with using tools to communicate your needs. And look, it's not easy. She comes home from work, she's exhausted. You're probably ready to go to bed if you're anything like me. The other night I fell asleep before 8 p.m. And I don't even have a dream feed.
I was asleep by 7 the other night.
I mean, I hear you. You're physically
totally
exhausted. Like, it's exhausting for everybody. So I think that's really brilliant and I love that you said you still want to be seen as like her man and sexy and, and all of those things. And I think it's really tough.
We'll go out on dates. That's the other point, is that we'll still go out on dates and, go to a nice restaurant, spend a little money, just like we would have when we both had jobs. And, I think that's been really important for us to, like, go out, not just be at the home. It's easy once you live here and work here to just be here, right? And so, like, getting out still and doing that, we try to get out once a week, and it's like hearing her say, you look really nice, all of that stuff is just, but that's all just stuff that I think every couple should be doing, regardless of, what they're trying to support their spouse on, and just, general supportive stuff. I mean, it's, that goes a long way. But her recognizing that, for me particularly, I like touch. If I'm in the kitchen cleaning the bottles, she'll come by and just, like, rub my back and give me a little kiss and say thank you. Like, and I don't like I hate cleaning bottles. It's like the worst. So
it's the worst. It really is.
Yeah, there's stuff that she recognizes as, like, I would rather be doing other things, but at the end of the day, this is the dream. Like, it's the dream. I get to wear whatever clothes I want. I play around with the kids all day. I get stuff ready. It's stressful at times. Like, I got a bunch of laundry going today, and so then a few errands I got to run. But it's I wouldn't have it any other way. And if I do go back to work, it'll be something that I don't have to compromise. All of these wonderful things that I'm able to do, and this person that I'm able to be for my family, just to make a buck. Like, that doesn't seem worth it to me. And as worth it to me as it did before.
I love it. To that end, I know you do have a lot to do, and we probably could talk for hours, but I really do want to say, I think that you're someone that, you're a very active, passionate person. And I can see that you proactively pour into your family. It's not like, oh, you're just sitting on the couch watching football all day. By the way, if you get to do that sometimes, I think you should. But I see that you're a really, really amazing hands-on father and very passionate at everything you do. You're incredibly bright and you have a lot of confidence to be able to like wear this role with confidence and know your value. And the fact that your boys get to have you there is priceless and you don't get the time back. So I just want to say, like, I think you're really a really, really special person. I can see why Hillary was like, you have to talk to Shawn because you're obviously amazing. So thank you for being here with me
Thank
and
you.
taking time out of your busy day. I know your free time is very, very valuable. So yes, just thank you so much. And we loved having you on.
Thank you. I really had a nice time talking, and this is a blast.
All right, that is it for today. Now, as you know, some of our best conversations actually happen after the show. So I want you to find me on Instagram at Kimberly Lovey and let me know your thoughts about today's show. You can screenshot this episode and let us know what your biggest takeaway was and tag me at Kimberly Lovey and we can share it on our stories. I will see you again, same time, same place next week.